Find out just what the people will submit to, and you have found out the exact amount of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. And these will continue until they are resisted with either words or blows or both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. And this week's opening quote comes from Frederick Douglass. Welcome to Surviving the Matrix. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Maxwell Igan. It's a pleasure to be with you once again, and I will be your host for the next hour. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the lengths to which tyrants will go with their tyranny has always been prescribed by the oppressed. It's always been what the people are prepared to take and how much the people are prepared to let their politicians oppress them. And that's as far as the politicians ever go. And that's what they do. That's why they just turn up the screws a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, just to see how much people will take before they fight back. And when the people fight back, they just back down a little bit, and then they just turn it up a little bit slower next time. And then they just keep going until they can keep ramping the speed up and get back to full steam ahead with the agenda. And that's what they seem to be doing at the moment, folks. They are most certainly going full steam ahead with the agenda simply because people are not fighting back. People are not saying anything. They're not doing anything. They're being cowed by the look of their police forces for the most part. That's what you find. People are simply not prepared to say anything because of the sheer brutality that they will be met with by the honourable protectors of society, our boys in blue. That's right, they're not in blue anymore. They're in black Kevlar body armour with automatic weapons and helmets and tasers and all sorts of torture devices that they carry on their belts. So I guess they're not the friendly boys in blue anymore, and that is the problem. And that's why people are simply not prepared to speak out against what's happening. Apart from the fact that the police look like Gestapo, they look like brutal terrorists, and they don't look like anybody who's going to help you or be friendly in any way. They're certainly not people you can ask directions from anymore, folks, but then I suppose it's also somewhat embarrassing to go up and ask directions from someone who likes to go out dressed like Batman. But the point I'm trying to make here, folks, is that people are far too intimidated by being confronted with people dressed like Batman on the street or being met with such brutality and intolerance at the police desk that they're just not prepared to speak out against the system. But of course, the problem that we find with such an approach is that by not speaking out, what people are doing is in fact allowing the system to get worse and to get more and more oppressive all around them, simply because they're not participating in policy. They're not participating in what's happening. This is the problem with people not paying attention to politics, is they end up ruled by very evil people who do very evil things. And that's what we're seeing in all Western countries at the moment. Not just Western countries, but also in any countries that the Western financial system has its tentacles into, which seems to be just about everywhere. But most certainly in all Western countries such as England, America, Canada, Australia, France, many countries in Europe, we are seeing a very definite slide into a very, very oppressive form of fascism. What we are seeing in all of these countries is politicians who are completely out of control, who are all serving a globalist, corporatist agenda. Every single one of them has sold the people of their country down the river and is now in the process of consolidating the control grid. And the only thing that's going to stop these moronic, psychopathic, sociopathic, child-killing, mass-murdering criminals that we have as politicians is the people themselves. And the way it has to be done is by the people standing up and calling things for what they are. Just really looking at the world. Don't buy into what the media tells you the world is. Look at it for yourself. And then turn and put the focus on those people who are creating the problems. I'll tell you folks, the problems in the world aren't being created by ISIS. They're not being created by Assad's regime in Syria. They're being created by the West, because the West is ISIS, and the West is what is toppling all of these regimes and creating all of this terrorism around the world. That's right, folks. It's our governments, and if not directly our governments, then governments that they are supporting, that are creating all of this global instability. And it's about time we called it for what it is, because they're destroying the world around us, and they're locking our own countries down into a nightmare police state while they're doing it. And they're doing it and they're getting away with it because they are all psychotic criminals, every last one of them. That's all modern politics is, folks, is a glamorized, glossed over, organized crime syndicate. That's all it is. Politicians are not your friends. They are, in fact, the scum of the earth, the warmongers, the child killers, and the polluters of this planet. And they are supported in this action by an utterly corrupt, criminal, and tightly controlled media, which infiltrates the public's consciousness with lie after lie after lie, and sells the entire slavery system to the world. These politicians and the criminal media that sells their lies have stolen everything that makes mankind who it is. They've stolen all of our history from us. They've stolen our medicines from us. They've stolen our ability to be ourselves from us. And they've led us into a blind alley of slavery run by a banking cartel. That's what they've done, folks. And they've imposed a false version, a false idea of what success is in the minds of the people. So everybody's chasing rainbows and chasing dreams that don't exist. And it's an absolute joke. And if humanity continues on down this path, then we are signing not only our own death warrants, but the death warrants of this entire planet and everything that lives on it. And the funny thing, folks, is that most people in the Western world look at all this and they call it progress. And they really have stolen everything from us, folks. They've stolen our creativity from us. They've stolen our ability to be who we are from us. They've stolen our health from us. Most certainly, they've stolen our health from us. There are so many people that support Big Pharma and support the pharmaceutical industry. It just blows my mind how many people are unaware of the massive benefits that were made to health in years long past, and the things that have been squashed by Big Pharma so they can sell their chemicals to the world. It really, really concerns me that so many people are unaware of the things that this government has done. So many people are unaware that there was actually a bill passed, the Cancer Act of 1939, which actually made it illegal to say that cancer was curable, because they didn't want to let the cat out of the bag, basically. They didn't want people to know this is one of the most curable diseases on the planet, because they hadn't discovered a synthetic cure for it yet, because there probably isn't one, because it's a naturally occurring disease and so it can be cured with natural remedies. And so they use it as one of the most profitable diseases on the planet, when it is in fact one of the most curable. Actually, folks, if you go to my website, thecrowhouse.com, and go to the recent headlines, you'll find a link to an article about the Cancer Act of 1939. And I think it would be prudent if those out there who are listening to this show were to inform themselves about this act, and to inform their friends about this act, and to let the world know what's really going on with this health industry. There's also things like Royal Raymond Rife. I mentioned this on an interview the other day. If you've never looked up the Rife microscope and the life and times of Royal Raymond Rife and the end of all diseases that was declared at a dinner party in the 1930s, I suggest you look up what this gentleman had to offer the world as well. So diseases can be cured. Our health could be much, much more stable than what it is. The entire overall health of the human race could be greatly improved simply by eliminating Big Pharma, eliminating any restrictions on the use of cannabis, and of course eliminating the governments that we have from their positions of power and replacing them with people of some responsibility. You know, we've got to get rid of these psychopaths that are running the world and replace them with some people who actually know how to run some infrastructure in a responsible manner, and not simply sell their souls to whatever it is they've sold them to, and sell their country out to corporate interests, the way the current crop of criminal politicians seems to be doing, with every waking moment that they suffer to crawl upon the surface of the earth. They just seem to steal and steal and steal. That's all they do. Although I suppose it's not all they do, they also seem to do a hell of a lot of lying, and if Mr. Heath in England is anything to go by, they also seem to like having sex with children an awful lot, and perhaps we should do something about that as well. And they're very good at covering things up as well, folks. They like to cover up all this information, but sometimes it just sneaks out and there's nothing they can do about it. And they certainly like to cover up anybody who's speaking out against them. By the way, folks, if you are listening to this, Facebook is no longer allowing any videos that I post to show up in anybody's feed on Facebook. I can make a post and it will show up on someone's feed, but if I post a video, usually it won't. So if you are listening to this show on YouTube, then it would be great if you could possibly share the show with your friends on Facebook, because it doesn't matter if I posted there, Facebook will not share it anyway. And this is just another way that they like to suppress the flow of information, folks. They certainly don't like people who are speaking the truth, and they certainly don't like people who are calling things for what they are. And there is certainly a huge counterintelligence operation happening at the moment on this planet as well, folks, to muddy the waters of the alternate media, to muddy the waters of the truth movement, and to pit everybody against each other. So be very careful of anybody naming people in the truth movement as shills if they haven't met them. Be very wary of anybody who's attempting to squash anything that may look like unity or forces getting together into a united, cohesive response. Because many of these people are divisionists who are literally terrified of unity, because if the people were to unite, then we would be a force to be reckoned with, and many of the people in the alternate media would also lose their income. Beware of anybody who is solely focused on their own agenda and who is saying that their way is the only way, because most of these people are either idiots or government operatives, folks. So it's very, very important that you think for yourself in what you're doing in this movement. And if you need people to talk to again, folks, we've got the Full Circle project up and running. All you have to do there is go and sign up to the Community Connector and find people in your area, start a local discussion group, local action group, and see what balls you can get rolling in your own community. But don't be afraid to unite with people, folks, because we need unity. There's nobody who's going to get through this on their own. There's no alternate community you can go and join that's going to be safe, because they still exist on this earth. And we have to rein this system back under control before it eats the entire earth up. And there is nowhere that's safe from it. We have to turn and we have to confront it. We need a full spectrum response to what these criminals are doing, but it's got to be a peaceful response. It's a non-violent response. It's simply a new meme. It's simply a new idea in the minds of the people, whereby suddenly they feel empowered, and they feel empowered enough to act, and to act in a responsible manner. And that's what we want to do, folks, because if we do that, then we can take this world back. We can wrest it from the hands of the psychopaths who are now running it. And if you think the world isn't run by psychopaths, folks, just go and look at the news. Look what's happening in Syria now. That's an interesting thing, isn't it? We've got Obama saying that he has approved airstrikes against any targets that fight back against the Syrian rebels. He's doing this in order to combat ISIS, but of course the Syrian rebels are ISIS. So what Obama is doing is covertly declaring war on Syria and offering air support to ISIS, who the United States is pretending to be fighting in other countries. They're actually giving them air support in Syria. So this is an absolute joke. Obama has just revealed himself to be a psychotic moron who speaks in doublespeak. I mean, I know he's only a puppet and he's doing the will of the banksters anyway, but I really don't know how this man is able to sleep at night or keep a straight face when he talks to people, because he's saying we're going to support ISIS in airstrikes against ISIS. What the hell is this? He's a moron, he's a psychopath, he's a warmonger, and he's a terrorist, like every other politician in Western governments who is supporting this fake and wholly contrived war on terror, which is in fact a war of terror, which is being waged by a criminal elite against the people of this planet under the pretext of keeping them safe. I mean, let's just call things for what they are, shall we? Some people say Obama is the lesser of two evils. I think he's just as psychotic as Benjamin Netanyahu. He just pretends that he isn't, and he pretends that he takes the other side of the fence. And in fact, they're both a couple of psychopathic, child-killing, warmongering terrorists who both need to be removed from office and taken to The Hague and hung for their crimes, along with the entire Bush administration and every politician in Israel who supports the divisionist, warmongering policies of the Netanyahu regime or seeks to continue to repress the Palestinian people. And let's not forget all the other governments that supported them with these criminal actions as well, folks. Let's not forget the Cameron regime in England, or what used to be England before the politicians got hold of it. We've also got the Abbott regime in Australia, which is doing its best to destroy the country and impoverish the people and support global terrorism by funding and helping with this fake war on terror as well. So let's just call things what they are, folks. Our governments are out of control, and it's about time we stood up, pointed the finger directly at them, and named them for exactly what they are. Mass murderers, warmongers, terrorists, sociopaths, and people who support the imposition of a financial slavery system over their own populace.